So anyway, a section of my family did turn up in Israel through the good offices of Ceausescu, and I did visit them, and I discovered that even those members of the family who came back from Auschwitz because they were too young and put to work and they weren't immediately exterminated and somehow survived, came back after horrific experiences and seeing their parents sent to the gas chamber and so on. I found even those people racist against the indigenous population, against the Palestinians. And I couldn't understand it, and I was completely shocked by it. And it wasn't only in my family, it was also, I thought it was all pervading Israel. There was an atmosphere of racism and militarism too, you know. You could see armed soldiers all over the place. This would be the middle 60s, before the Six-Day War. And I visited Jerusalem, which was then still divided. And again, I was shocked by the tour guides pointing towards the other side, making extremely racist comments. It was just all over the place. So the present attitudes are no surprise.
What are your thoughts about how so many people went through, frankly, just the most horrendous crimes, most unspeakable crime, you know, crimes that humans are capable of committing against each other during the Holocaust, and obviously had suffered in lots of different ways before that, as you spoke about anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
To have that experience of knowing what it's like to be racialised, to be oppressed and to suffer.
Humiliated.
And utterly humiliated, degraded.
Yeah.
And then to end up having the sorts of, what you described as racist attitudes when they meet to Israel.
I have no explanation. I just found it unbelievable and completely contrary to what you would expect. And it may be partially explained by the syndrome of an abuser. Abused could become an abuser, which you can see sometimes in family context. And it may be to some degree, in a subconscious way, true to a larger group of people, a nation. Not that it excuses it, but for example, this one particular cousin I can think of who survived Auschwitz, who survived because he was put to work in a warehouse sorting clothes, and one day sorted his parents' clothes. I can't imagine a greater trauma. And she herself, although traumatized and could not talk about her experiences, not even to her daughter, was quite clearly racist against the Palestinians. So was my aunt, with whom I stayed. And on one occasion we were watching the news, and there was a demonstration by Palestinians, and suddenly helicopter gunships appeared over them and shooting into the crowd. And probably rubber bullets, I hope. But anyway, they're shooting into the crowd. And I was completely shocked. And my aunt, who was a converted Christian on top of her Holocaust, very brave Holocaust experiences, said, "What's the problem? They are Arabs."
Wow.
You know, I can't make any comment. I was just flabbergasted. She was a converted Christian, a genuine one, Calvinist, which had to be kept quiet from her neighbors.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But that didn't stop her being one of the first supporters of Bibi Netanyahu.
Wow.
You know, an extreme nationalist at the same time as a Christian. It just didn't make sense.
Today, South Africa's taken Israel to the International Court of Justice for violations alleged of the Genocide Convention 1948, which of course was established in the aftermath of the Holocaust.
Yeah.
And that Genocide Convention has five different crimes, one of which is genocide, the other is obviously complicity in genocide, it's public incitement of genocide. But there are 5 acts, and they're being obviously now that they're on trial for an alleged genocide for what's been described by the ICJ as a plausible genocide. Now, the Israeli state and their defenders say this is an outrageous libel. How dare you say that? What's your thoughts in terms of you're someone who survived the genocide?
Yeah, yeah.
When they say this is not a genocide taking place, what's your thoughts about what's happening in Gaza?
Well, anybody who sees the news and can see the cruel and indiscriminate destruction cannot but agree that it is a genocide. I mean, after all, how can you argue any further after killing tens of thousands of kids, young children? I mean, end of argument, I think. And the pretexts provided, one that it is self-defense, doesn't wash, because we are way beyond that, and you don't self-defense doesn't go with dropping 2,000-pound bombs on living quarters. The other excuse is to liberate the hostages. Again, you don't liberate hostages by bombing. It will never work. If you want to liberate hostages, you negotiate.
Which is the only way we have had big hostages, because more hostages have been killed by Israeli fire than have been liberated by.
Not only that, but if Hamas are as evil as they're made out to be, what chance of cornering them and still expecting to find the hostages alive? If they are such evil people, they're never going to allow that. So the whole attitude, the whole claim that this is about saving hostages is a very transparent lie. It is genocide. And ethnic cleansing.
I mean, one of the disturbing facets I found is, I mean, I interviewed Raz Sigal, who's an Israeli-American associate professor of Holocaust and Genocide Studies, and he said to me that what's quite unique about this is intent is of the way that
It's
Israeli
declared.
is very rare, actually. Yeah. So, very striking examples of the Minister of Defence, Gallant at the very start, saying we're going to cut off all the essentials of life because we're fighting human animals, or Benjamin Netanyahu invoking Amalek, in which God commands the Israelites to kill men, women, children, livestock, and all the rest. And because genocide always starts with words, doesn't it? It always starts with how people speak. So I just wondered about your thoughts.
Yes, it's a process.
Exactly.
It's a process, because you first have to completely humiliate and dehumanize the subjects of genocide, which has happened systematically in the case of the Jews and the Holocaust. Absolutely. And I think it's very clear how it is repeating at the present time in Gaza. And also the use of starvation as a method, as a weapon. It cannot be in any way defended. I mean, the Israeli government's attitude of coping with that is quite simply denying it. But that doesn't work, because international bodies confirm that it's going on. And I find that in this connection, our own government's attitude is extremely dubious or wrong-headed. I think supplying arms and going along with and denying the existence of this deliberate starvation, etc., was a facilitating genocide, really.
I mean, that's would you say that our government is facilitating genocide? Is that
I think, yeah. But now, when they withdrew support from UNRWA, which was the only method, the best and on a large scale.
So people know that's the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees. It's the main humanitarian agency in Gaza.
Yeah, which capable of distributing food and medicine, etc. To actually withdraw funds from that is a degree stepping further from facilitating to partnership with genocide, in my opinion.
Absolutely, and we've seen the claims made by the Israeli state about UNRWA have collapsed. They've refused to provide any evidence to support those allegations in a new report which has come out. In terms of people speaking out, I mean, you're speaking out right now, and you've been actually speaking out for before this happened.
Yeah.
Because before I speak, I want to talk about the protests currently happening.
Yeah.
And I'm also interested particularly in this incredibly courageous, often younger, but not all, exclusively generation of Jewish people, particularly in the United States, speaking out. But your experience, you've spoken out before this current horror began. And I just want you to tell me a bit about that in the context of the Labour Party.
I was invited to, as a Holocaust survivor, and unfortunately there are fewer and fewer of us remaining who can still stand up and talk. And I was invited by a proscribed organization, as it turns out, to speak about my experiences on Holocaust Memorial Day a year ago, January previous year. And I accepted because I felt that whoever asked me to speak about my experiences, I feel a duty to do so. And this organization, SLN, had trailed that I was going to be on a panel, which got to the Labour Party bureaucracy, and they wrote a letter a couple of days before I was due to speak to warn me that if I were to go ahead with that, I would be subject to disciplinary procedures. And I know what that means by that time. And that means being expelled because the process is completely unjust. People never have a chance to be represented, and no appeal ever succeeds, etc. So I knew that in so many words meant if you go ahead, you will be expelled. So as an immediate response, I resigned my membership and wrote a letter which justified it, explained that to me this was importing McCarthyism into the Labour Party and into the UK itself. So the Labour Party was performing a service of reviving McCarthyism, and I said that would be condemned by history.
I mean, it is extraordinary, you know. I mean, I think history.
And I left.
Well, I mean, I think how history will look at all of this, I'd be fascinated to know, because in the present, it's almost indescribable, just the sheer level of horror, but the way the world's turned upside down, that those who speak out are the ones who are treated as the extremists. But in the case of the Labour Party, we'd all agree anti-Semitism is a grave evil to be combated, but the idea that protecting Jewish people means taking disciplinary action against Holocaust survivors, I think a lot of people look at that and think, that is kind of unhinged,
Yes.
if I'm honest, just completely unhinged.
Yeah, I agree. So my letter was not kept quiet. You know, it was publicized all around, and that actually created quite a lot of interest, and had a few interviews around that time about it, with Middle East Eye and some other people.
Others who've spoken out, so for example, Stephen Glazer, the director of Zone of Interest, which is a brilliant film about the Holocaust. And he did this speech in which he said he spoke on behalf of him and 2 of his Jewish producers that we refute our Jewishness being used to justify these, you know, what's happening. And then his words were stripped out of context, as if he'd said, he refuted his Jewishness, which he never said. But I'm just interested in that, the way in particular, and we can see this in Germany, the figures show that disproportionately Jewish people are the people who've been arrested, deplatformed for speaking out. I do find that extraordinary that, you know, there's this systematic and deliberate attempt to disproportionately target Jewish people who speak out. You know, and Stephen Glazer, you know, he suffered, Jonathan Glazer, you know, he suffered the, you know, terrible attacks. Another example, Yuval Abraham, an Israeli journalist who spoke at the Berlinale film festival. And then the non-Jewish mayor of Berlin denounced him and the others for anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
How do you? I would go a bit mad just watching so many Jewish people being attacked in this way. Yeah. Do you not, as a Holocaust survivor, look at this and think this is just unbelievable?
This is a disgusting weaponizing of the Holocaust experience and conflating the Israeli state and Zionism with simply being Jewish, and this is completely wrong, and it's a cynical and deliberate weaponizing. Big part of that is the definition that they brought about, the IHRA definition, which made any criticism of the Israeli state or support for Palestinians labeled as anti-Semitism. It's an outrageous distortion, and that's one of the reasons why I am taking part in the current demonstrations and become part of the Holocaust survivor and descendants group.
Because a group's been set up to bring people like yourself to speak out in this way.
Is to counter that terrible, damaging, evil conflation. That in fact a large number of Jews, particularly very often non-observant Jews, which are a large number, not everybody is organized around synagogues like the Board of Deputies claim, and we are totally against the use of the memory of the Holocaust and this conflation of Jewishness with Zionism, and protest against it, not in our name. And yes, I think that's a very important function of Jews who are against all this, and as regards this false definition that is being used for this purpose, for these false anti-Semitism claims, it doesn't stand up legally. It's actually a very weak document. The Labour Party, who accuses people with anti-Semitism, never uses this definition in court because it's not good enough. And there have been much better definitions, if you need any definition. Even the Oxford English very brief definition is better and to the point. And since then, there have been a creation of an alternative definition called the Jerusalem Declaration, which is supported by large number of scholars, Jewish and mostly Jewish and other scholars, but it's being ignored because this is a political issue.